the green glass of a champagne bottle, and then the gold foil top that you also find on a champagne bottle. Next, I want to point out to you this Beaux-Art beauty right here. This is the Jewelers building with the cupolas in the corners and the dome up on top. Now, as I said, that's Beaux-Arts. And Beaux-Arts, again, that's a conglomeration of different styles just meant to make a building look beautiful. But what's really cool about that building is when they first built it, they actually had an elevator in the building that the jewelers could drive their car into the elevator, stay in their car, and then take it up to whatever floor they needed to go to and get out. Of course, that was done because jewelers are carrying jewels. And so they wanted to minimize their possibility of being robbed. What they didn't know, though, is that in the dome up on top of that building, there was a speakeasy that was run by Al Capone. So it's questionable as to how safe those jewelers actually were in their own building. Next, we have this sleek, narrow, white tower right here, clad in terracotta. That is the Mather Tower. Now, that building was opened in 1929. And if you'll notice, right next to it, there's a blank spot. And that's because that's where the Twin Tower was supposed to go. But because of the Great Depression in 1929, they ran out of funding and were unable to actually build that second tower. So we have that blank spot right there. Now we're coming up to Michigan Avenue. This right here, this is the London Guarantee and Accident Building, another Beaux-Art beauty. What's really cool is on the sidewalk up there, if you were to go up there, in brass, in the sidewalk, they have what is the outline of where Fort Dearborn used to stand. Now, Fort Dearborn was the U.S. Army fort that was constructed to protect the town of Chicago back when we were a fur trading post. And of course, there was a very unfortunate massacre that happened at that fort where the local Black Hawk Indians attacked the fort and basically killed everyone inside. Now, right here, just quickly want to point out, you basically right down in front of where the Tribune building is, there's a plaza. And that's actually where you could say Chicago started. This is roughly where the mouth of the Chicago River used to be in the 1770s. In fact, the reason why they call Michigan Avenue is because that is roughly where the shore of Lake Michigan was. And right here on the corner, go figure, on the corner of the Mag Mile, there was actually a fur trading post set up by a gentleman by the name of Jean-Baptiste Pontoussaint. And he was the first non-Native American to live in Chicago. And, you know, like I said, go figure that they would be selling furs on the corner of Michigan Avenue even way back in the 1770s. So pretty much everything that you see around you on both sides is pretty much shaped by the hand of man. In fact, all this land was not here back in the 1770s. It was, we would be in the lake right now. Most of this land was actually created from the debris of the Great Chicago Fire. They literally just pushed the debris right into the lake here. Now, along the lake's edge, there were plenty of sandbars and things like that, so it was very easy for them to create this additional land, and of course that's why we have all these buildings around us today. Now, I want to point out to you this tall white building over here on our right side with the black stripes going down. That is called the Aon Center. It is currently the third tallest building in Chicago. And when it first opened, it was known as the Standard Oil Building, and then it became the Amoco Building. But what's interesting about that building is it is currently clad in white granite. But when the building first opened, it was clad in Carrara marble. Now, Carrara marble is the same type of marble that Michelangelo used to use to create many of his sculptures. And that's a great thing if you're an artist because it's a soft stone, which means that you can chip away at it, you can sand it and shape it into beautiful sculpture. That's great. But it's bad if you're a building in Chicago. That's because we have very warm winters, we have very warm summers, and that causes the rock to expand, and then we have very cold summers. Yeah, I think you guys know what I'm getting at. Cold winters creates contraction, warm summers creates expansion. I did pass earth science, I swear to God. That expansion and contraction creates cracks in the rock. And when you have cracks in the rock, you literally have giant pieces of marble falling off the building onto the sidewalk below. That's a potential hazard. So they actually had to take all the marble off the building and then reclad it in granite. And it was said it cost as much money to take the marble off and put the granite on as it did for them to build the entire building in the first place. Now, this building right here, this is the Sheraton Hotel in Chicago, and it's actually another example of postmodern architecture. It's actually based on the Perry Scott building, which is in the Loop in downtown Chicago. The original Perry Scott building is designed by Louis Sullivan, a very famous Chicago architect, and he's one of the creators of what is known as the Chicago style. Now you'll notice on the Sheraton you can see those rounded corners, and that's because the Perry Scott also has rounded corners. This style of architecture, you'll notice it particularly along the river's edge, you can see there's lots of horizontal lines to it. And this is known as Prairie style. And that is a style of architecture that started right here in Chicago. And Prairie style is re-emphasizing those long horizontal lines like you would find on the prairie. Unfortunately, we don't get to see a lot of Louis Sullivan along the river, but if you are interested, there's plenty of buildings in the Loop. In fact, Target just opened up in one of his old department store buildings on State Street, and they redid this just beautiful, magnificent building. They completely redid it, and it's just kind of nice to see because it was completely abandoned before that, and it's horrible